Captain Mustarian's sword, the sword he left me in his will, is sticking out of the remote piloting controls of my stolen spaceship's instrument panel. At least I think it's the remote piloting controls. In any case, Robert hasn't been able to turn the ship around and fly me back to Venus, or rather the Cloud City floating over Venus, by accessing the remote piloting. I know he's following me. I don't know how far behind he is, but I know he's there, well within communication range, and probably in a faster ship, gaining. The human-sounding voice reverberating out from the computer speakers, that's Robert. It sounds like it belongs to a middle-aged human male, but only in the sense that the great Australian Empire programmed it to sound that way. In the same sense that Callie programmed herself to smile in public and to shake hands, and if the person paying a fortune for one of her photographs was from Japan, to bow at the correct time and at the correct angle. I guess a lot of successful people have had to learn those things, etiquette and rituals they didn't learn growing up. Back when we were kids, Callie never once opened her mouth knowing intuitively the right thing to say. She never sounded natural either, except with me. Why are you smiling? Robert asks. I look up from Captain Mustarian's sword, up from the occasional pleasing spark leaping into the air. I guess I was just thinking Captain Mustarian would like this, this use of his sword. No, I don't know. Well, that's because it's like a final act of piracy. I pause, squinting at the black speaker. Do you know the slightest thing about me? About my life? Define slightest, Robert says. And then an idea hits me. Hey, if you can hear me, can you record what I'm saying? I can remember it. Yes, I know you can remember it. And actually, maybe that's all that matters. I rub my chin, or is it chins now? That sparking, sputtering instrument panel makes me smile again. I must have disabled the remote piloting controls, I think. I just must have. Too bad I also killed the autopilot. That means, in a few hours, I'm going to have to do something I've never done before with a vehicle of this size. Steer. If you prefer, Robert says, I can record your thoughts. And with that, a helmet descends from the ceiling. Actually, it looks more like Mom's old metal salad bowl than a helmet, but I get the idea. Telepathically, you mean? No, Robert says, but you can think of it that way. And could you maybe just keep talking to me over the speaker system? Speaking, I mean. The idea of someone else's thoughts in my head, foreign thoughts that aren't my own, it just... Yes, Robert says. Still nodding, I look up at the helmet dangling a few inches above my head. So you can control things in the ship, but not the piloting, huh? Yes, that is correct. You have disabled the remote piloting. I cannot steer. Perfect, I say, pulling the helmet down onto my head. All right. It fits rather comfortably for a metal salad bowl. Let's start then. Let's start with Antarctica. If truth be told, I didn't just pack up my things and leave all in one day the second after Callie broke up with me. You'll have to forgive an old man's memory. Plus, it's not like Callie and I hadn't broken up 101 times before. Breaking up, fighting in general, that's what Callie and I did. We'd been breaking up our whole lives. If only giant hunks of space rock were more like-minded. But that day, when Callie stood in front of my parents' house, waiting 3 hours for me to come home from work so she could confront me, that day I knew. This time she was leaving for good. Clay Ingram, she shouted, pounding the heel of her tiny hand on the passenger side door. You get out of that cab this instant. I went on drumming away with my fingers on the bottom of the steering wheel, waiting for the end of the song. Black Hole Sun was the song, by Soundgarden. God damn it, Kelly said, giving the passenger side door one last good punch before she speed walked around the front of the cab. Black Hole Sun, Black Hole Sun. I took another sip of vermouth from a bottle I'd purchased with 3 25-pound bags of ice. Yeah, vermouth. That's the level to which my ice for booze bartering skills had diminished by day's end. I felt so cheated. Yes, cheated. That's the perfect word for the occasion. Callie stepped up onto the running boards and yelled into my open window right in my ear. Clay! I winced. What? What the? Callie, I'm listening to a song here. Jesus. Clay, did you fuck Tracy Weathers? Did you? I turned and stared at her for a second. Huh, Clay? Callie lowered her voice. Did you? Tell me, did you fuck her? Did you cheat on me? I stared, my mind floating in 10.5 cans of old style, 750 milliliters of white Zinfandel, a 40-ounce Murphy's, a Monster energy drink to stay awake while driving, and a half bottle of Gallo dry vermouth. I know because I counted the empties in the refrigeration unit later that evening, and because I still had the Gallo in my hand. Vermouth aside, It was a good trading day. I even made 64 bucks cash on broken bags. Store owners love those broken bags. Did you? Kelly asked again. My song was over. And as that last guitar note warbled and whined its way into nothingness, I don't know why, disregarding all the alcohol, but I answered her honestly. I said, "Wait, which Tracy?" "You cheated on Kelly Davidson?" asks a voice in my head that almost sounds human but nothing like my own. It's a far cry from my internal monologue. What the? I ripped the salad bowl off my head. What did I say about that? No, no putting thoughts in my head. Remember? Sorry. You talk to me. You speak through the speakers, not through my brainwaves. My thoughts are mine. Right now, mine. Sorry, says Robert again, although this time he says it through the black mesh speakers. It will not happen again. You were saying? About Antarctica? Kelly Davidson, I mutter, pulling the helmet back on. Do you have to call her that? Mr. and Mrs. Davidson had named Kelly after the Indian goddess of destruction, which is better than naming her Ganesha, I guess, after that Indian elephant monster with 4 arms or whatever. In any case, Callie's name came from her mother's side of the family, the Indian side. Callie's father was an Englishman, and possibly the whitest white man you've ever seen. In fact, he was the opposite of Callie's mother in every way. Pale blue eyes, blonde hair, tall. You'd think that tallness would have caused Callie's father to leave everything in high places, but that wasn't the case. Growing up, Callie was always coming over to my house with some new piece of electrical equipment or ceramic statue or something to destroy. We blew them up with homemade explosives, smashed them with hammers, crushed them in my dad's vise, all so little Callie could photograph the remains. I used to think that if only her father had placed things a bit higher on the shelves, Callie never could have reached. She'd inherited her mother's shortness, as well as her mother's hair and facial features, but not her eyes, which were light and blue and pale like her father's. Her skin was a perfect blend of her parents' complexions, a perpetual tan. I assume Callie got her destructive streak from her mother too, since I never saw her father get mad. Like I said, English. He didn't even get mad when his daughter showed him her pictures, the evidence of what Callie and I had destroyed. Callie's father would just smile and nod and never raise his voice. Callie would ask, "Do you think Mom would have liked it?" And her father would say he was absolutely certain, not a shred of doubt in his mind. Callie's mother had died giving birth. I never thought Callie blamed herself, which wouldn't have made sense anyway, but her father always seemed to mention it, how they'd decided upon Callie's name long before she was born, as though to assure us that Callie's naming had nothing to do with her mother's destruction. That day in my parents' driveway, Callie didn't go into my garage and grab a baseball bat and bust out every window of the truck. That would have been a good sign, actually. Par for the course. Pretty much normal Callie behavior. Instead, without another word, without a second glance, Callie got into her tiny black Toyota and drove home, answering me only with silence. And that silence, in retrospect, there's only one thing I could compare it to: when those baby birds stopped chirping. I know Callie drove home because I watched her. I could see her house from the truck's cab. That's because Callie grew up 11 houses down the block from me. I'd known her my whole life, though she wasn't exactly the girl next door. After a few minutes, after I'd finished my vermouth, I opened the driver's side door and rolled out onto the ground and lay in my parents' lawn for about 15 minutes. And then my dad was standing above me. "So, she finally dumped your stupid ass, huh? Smart one, that girl." "Now is not the time, Dad," I said, looking up at him. "You gonna turn that engine off?" "What? Oh, son of a..." I stumbled to my feet. "Old man Keenan isn't going to be happy about this," Dad said. "Fuck old man Keenan," I said. Dad was referring to how old man Keenan had instructed me not to take the Tinsel Ice Company's truck home anymore, no matter how much gas money I figured it would save the company. "Your mother and I are barbecuing in the backyard," Dad said. "We've got bratwurst." "Johnsonville?" I asked. "No, Mom got those Jewel brand again." And that settled it. My life was totally ruined. No Callie, no decent brats. "I brought some of them out to Callie," Dad said. "She said they were okay." But both Dad and I knew that Callie had just been lying for Mom's benefit. "I'm going to get Polish," I said, and tried to climb back into the cab, but Dad stopped me. He accomplished this by flicking one of his Polish sausage-sized fingers so I fell backwards into the grass. Oh well, I hadn't really wanted to get up anyway. "I'll go to Maxwell's," Dad said. "I'll get you a Polish, and when I get back, if you can beat me in horse, you don't gotta pay for it." I was in no condition to play horse. Maybe pig. I clenched my jaw. And then I forgot where I was and what was happening. And then I remembered. Oh, right. Kelly had just broken up with me. The world was ending. Yes, a Polish, I said. That sounds fantastic. Yeah, Dad said. Okay, good. He turned and climbed into the ice truck. Dad, I said. And Dad looked down on me. I'm going to be okay, right? I mean, in the end, don't you think? I remember Dad kind of hung there a second, his hand gripping the pull bar next to the door, his arm straight, one boot on the running board. He didn't say anything, not aloud anyway. I just remember him looking down at me like you might look down at a person clinging to shipwreck debris, just a single plank maybe, treading icy cold water, their breath visible, shivering and asking you, I'm going to be all right, right? When you know there's just not enough room in your lifeboat. And then Dad drove off. To Antarctica? Robert asks me. What? No, I say. And then, wait, was that a joke?